At just 2 years old, Puyi became the emperor of China. By the age of 6, his throne had been abolished, his dynasty toppled, and his life forever changed. Meanwhile, in medieval France, an infant king, John I, was crowned at birth only to die 5 days later, leaving a kingdom in chaos. These are the stories of monarchs whose reigns began before they really understood power, and yet the world around them felt the shock waves. What happens when a child inherits a throne in a time of crisis? The answer lies in ambition, manipulation, and a world forcing adults' wars onto children's shoulders. Puyi was born on 7th of February 1906 in Beijing, into the Manchu Isenjoro clan. In December 1908, following the death of the Guangxu Emperor and the passing of Empress Dowager Cixi, 2-year-old Puyi was enthroned as the Xuantong Emperor. He sat on the dragon throne, surrounded by court eunuchs and regents, while real power lay in the hands of his father, Prince Chun, and Empress Dowager Longyu. Although the hereditary ritual crowned him emperor, his youth left him powerless. He signed edicts, but he did not direct policy. He dressed in imperial robes and symbolized a 1,000-year tradition, but the real world was shifting fast. In China, the wave of Republican revolution was building. By 1911, the Xinhai Revolution erupted. On 12th February 1912, Puyi abdicated the throne, ending over 2 millennia of imperial rule in China. Yet his story did not end there. He was expelled from the Forbidden City in 1924, became a puppet emperor under Japanese-occupied Manchuria, as Emperor of Manchukuo from 1934, and by the end of World War II was a captive of the Soviet Union, then a prisoner in China, and later a common citizen. What about John I of France? His case is remarkable for how brief his reign was. Born 15th November 1316, 5 months after his father Louis X's death, he became King of France and Navarre at birth and died on 19th to 20th November 1316, only a few days old. He holds the record for the shortest reign of any undisputed French king. His entire life was his reign. The political consequence? His death triggered a succession crisis, and the Salic law, barring women from the throne, was reaffirmed in its aftermath. Although John I never ruled in any meaningful sense, his existence shows just how fragile and dependent child monarchs were on surrounding power structures. Back to China. Puyi's reign in childhood, his abdication at 6, his later puppet status, all show how dynastic rule can thrust a child into the world's violent currents. The lessons of his life: how powerless a child can be when the throne becomes a tool for others. Ambitions. He didn't execute his enemies himself. The title of the video plays on contrast. But the implication is clear. Monarchs, even children, become symbols of strength, fear, and control. When adults wage war, children inherit the throne and the fallout. Here's the twist. Power isn't always in the hands of the crowned. Sometimes it lies with the regents, the generals, the occupiers, and the child is the figurehead. Puyi's life reminds us of that harsh reality. He was an emperor by name, but a pawn by the forces around him. And John I of France reminds us of how ephemeral that power can be. A kingdom left without real rule because the king never lived. The lesson: true sovereignty lies not in titles or early crowns. It lies in real agency. And children who inherit thrones may carry the burden of adults. Wars without the means to direct them. So when you think of a 6-year-old king who executed his enemies, remember, the real story is more subtle. It's about how the machinery of power uses the young, how history can rest on the shoulders of a child, and how the young monarchs become symbols of something far bigger than themselves. Because in the end, the crown might sit on a child's head, but the weight rests on all of us.